Oh, I'm feeling so energized.
Are
all of a
you?
sudden. Yeah.
Oh my God. One of us is going to fall asleep and one of us is going to wake up.
Listen all the way to the end if you want to find out.
Oh, welcome to Text Me Back, the only show that forces its hosts to use creativity every week to come up with a new tagline.
I don't think that's true, Megan. Well, maybe about the tagline, but I think other shows use lots of creativity.
No, they don't. I checked the dictionary.
I disagree. If you're another show who uses creativity and you'd like to have us on your show to promote our show, let us know.
Oh, no. I've already ruined our marketing plan for
that's right.
2025.
We just came up with it, Megan.
Idiot.
Welcome to Text Me Back, the only show that we're recording right now.
See, it's not so easy, is it? Brainastroni.
No, it's not easy.
Anyway,
nothing's easy these days, Megs.
Everything's hard. It's so hard.
I saw a news article today about an ancient man whose brain was turned to glass by the fires of a volcano, and I thought, I want that.
I know. It's hard to see others living your dreams.
I know. I was like, okay, downside, brain turned to glass. Upside, that guy probably remembers things really, like all the things that were in there when it got turned to glass. He probably doesn't ever forget them.
We'll never know until Yale gets its little brain vacuum over there.
Yeah.
To get the thoughts out.
Hurry up.
Just like they did with those pigs.
Hurry up. Hurry up. So anyway, I'm just manifesting, setting some intentions for the year. Mm-hmm. Fingers crossed, brain turned to glass by a volcano so that at least I can remember to like wear my retainer, you know?
Well, yeah, no, totally. Well, Mount Rainier, people may or may not know this. Mount Rainier is an active volcano. It could happen at any time. It's really just like, are you going to be lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time for brain glass? I've got my fingers crossed for you, kid.
Thank you. I think I'm a little bit too far away, but I am really close to the nuclear submarine. So maybe that would have the same effect.
Great. Sensational.
Cool. Anyway.
Well, on today's show, we'll be turning our brains to glass with lava. No, we're going to talk about some more stuff we did in New York that we forgot to tell you about because we're just going to be milking the New York cow for a while.
Yeah.
We're going to do a segment called Is It Okay to Be Mad About That? Which is a politics. No, I guess technically it's a segment pubes again.
Well,
it's a politics. It's a politics.
the lines have become blurred.
There are too many pubes to designate at this time.
I mean, I don't know if you remember this, Megan, or if you blocked it out and erased it from your cut glass mind, but I did come up with a good idea maybe for what we can call our politics segments going forward. Sometimes we call it Politics Power Minute, except that's what we call it when we're going to try to only talk for 1 minute and then we never.
Yeah.
I thought of a great title that comes with, it already has a jingle. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Crazy lady living in a bag.
The bag is America. The crazy lady is us.
Yes, exactly.
So just
nailed it.
No need to decide right now. Let it percolate. Think about it.
I'll think about it.
Yeah.
But while we're thinking about it, we might as well just play the segment pubes jingle because it's a good jingle, you know? So just really quick.
Segment pubes.
There's no reason that we can't do both. It's that I think Crazy Lady Living in a Bag is a sub-segment of segment pubes. Because segment pubes can cover so much more than just politics. So we need to have a subcategory. Yeah. Okay. I think we figured that out. So we're going to talk about that. And
that's it. That's the whole list.
No, and we're going to make a special request of you, the Text Me Backalites.
Yes, a special request.
So,
but first,
open your hearts to us. But first,
we're heading back to the Big Apple, baby, New York City.
I'm walking here
in a
segment we're calling "I'm Walking Here."
Please respect my walking capabilities. That's what we're calling it.
Oh, speaking of going back in time, should we take 1 second and react to last week's field recordings? Because
oh God, yeah. You know what? I don't know if should we apologize? Do you think was it? So we got the tiny microphones. I think we had a vision in our mind for what it was going to be, and it was so deranged when we were listening to the recordings back. I think you and a producer Allie put together a wonderful episode, but it was crazy.
I thought you were going to say I loved your tidings from the train having food poisoning, but that's fine. I think that we lack something important required for a good field recording, which is the courage to go up and talk to people.
Never gonna happen.
And so in the absence of that, it's just the regular podcast, but with worse sound quality.
Yes.
But I think all of that got cut out. So if you want to hear me and Megan's field recordings, you can go listen to the extended version on our Patreon.
You can. Yes. Basically, I was mostly talking about the stuff I recorded, which you did not hear in last week's episode because it got cut.
Okay, but
it was not good. It sounded like shit.
No, I edited it personally myself, and it's actually really charming. It just, when it came to putting a 1 hour episode together, the thing that made the most sense was just the one cohesive train narrative.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it was very disjointed and strange, but very charming and funny also.
If you're a Patreon subscriber, we released an extended version just for subscribers, and it has Lindy's train trip, but it also has a trip of us going to visit the wizard who was on our episode about Lord of the Rings, and he lives near me in Maryland. So we scooted on up there and we tried to do some recordings, many of which were lost because I didn't turn the microphone on. That is another really key part of field recording, is making sure your equipment is turned on. And we had a nice little time. We went to a Mexican restaurant. If you want to hear more about it, you can subscribe to our Patreon and give it a listen.
Megan,
and enjoy.
I don't want you to have low self-esteem about this. I personally edited it and it was really funny.
Listeners, you tell us. I had a great time.
Yeah.
Actually experiencing it. Listening to the recordings, I was like, this is only funny to two women who have been friends since the year 2000 and have been screaming in this particular key for 25 years. But I might be wrong about that. That it does seem to be the reason why people like this podcast. So give it a listen.
I'm telling you, it's good.
You tell us, Patreon subscribers who have heard it, if you want to weigh in on this debate, you better subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/textmebackpod. And by the way, no ads in that extended version. So you can just enjoy it ad-free. You don't have to hear about any sort of products. So enjoy. Patreon.com/textmebackpod.
You know what's the only product I'm enjoying today, Megan? Water. I love water. I freaking love water.
You're finally cured of train disease. So now you can eat and drink. Dude, that's good. And stay nourished. Disease,
it lasted so freaking long, dude.
I don't like it. Now you've got your Cadbury mini eggs and you're restored to full health.
Thank God.
As they say in video games. Anyway, so let's get in our DeLorean and head back to New York, the Big Apple, in a segment we're calling I'm Walking Here. So we were in New York for the beloved and prestigious On-Air Festival, and we were there from like Wednesday to Saturday. And Friday nights is when RuPaul's Drag Race airs. And I was like, amazing. I will watch it from the comfort of my bed.
An important part of Megan's culture.
It's a very important part of my culture. And so I was like, I have to know what happens, you know? I'll watch it from the comfort of my hotel bed. But the hotel had a very odd array of channels. Like we were talking about this and it was like, where was the HLN? A staple of hotel television channels.
I can't sleep in a hotel without Forensic Files on.
It was crazy. So like they didn't have that. They didn't have MTV. Although I don't even fault them for that because who the fuck has MTV? I the only reason I have MTV is so I can watch Drag Race when it's on. Otherwise, why would you have that?
I didn't even know MTV still was a company.
Apparently, yeah, that's what they say. That's what they're claiming. That's what the Viacom Corporation is claiming at this time. So the hotel didn't have it. And I was like, well, I guess I could just catch up with it when I get home. But then I was like, I wonder if there's just like a gay bar near here that is just showing it. And I'll just go to that. That could be fun. So I Googled it, and not only was there a gay bar near there that was showing it, it was hosted by RuPaul's Drag Race contestant, Thorgy Thor, who I have grown to love because she's very funny. And if you don't know who that is, she's the one who Bob the drag queen asks her if she likes Pink, the singer. And she goes, I think she's a bad seed on this earth. Which is such an amazing level of energy for Pink, the singer. Anyway, and the great news was it was only a 5-minute walk from our hotel. So I was like, Lindy, do you want to go? Do you want to go to this?
The universe laid this gift in the path of Meagan. And
it did.
Who was I to say nay? What kind of a friend would I be?
I know. So after some wrangling, we decided to go. We walked our little 5 minutes.
I mean, and to be clear, this is after a full day of work.
Yeah.
On a business trip while talking to strangers, networking all day, being on camera, being recorded. We recorded 2 podcast episodes.
Yeah.
And then we went out after 7 p.m. It's fully dark.
Yeah. It was crazy. So.
And I did it.
And Lindy did it. Up until the moment we left, I was like, she's going to bail and I won't even be mad because like I kind of want to bail on myself and just stay in bed and just catch up with it later. But we both went. It was so exciting. So it was only a 5-minute walk and didn't know anything about this bar, but we start to walk there and it was cold on the way there, but it was okay. It was like, it was windy.
It was
a little
snowing.
icy.
It was for sure snowing.
I think that was the day that we went to the.
But it had snowed. There was snow upon the ground.
Yes, there was a dusting on the ground. It was a little windy, but it wasn't like too horrific. So we get to the place, and unfortunately, the bar is an outdoor bar, and they didn't have any of those heaters. None of those like little outdoor propane heaters, and the only warmth was coming from the taco truck.
The bar, I didn't even know that this was a kind of business that you were allowed to have. The bar was a tent.
Yes.
In between 2 buildings.
In between an ice cream shop.
Yeah.
And like something else. I don't know.
I don't know what the point is of having a bar in a tent if you don't have any of those little heaters. The whole thing was very confusing.
Yeah,
it was like picnic tables in a tent, but then it had, electricity. It had TVs. It had sort of permanent infrastructure.
Yeah. And there seemed to be some sort of like game setup, like, cornhole or whatever.
Yeah.
Behind where we were. So anyway, so we go in by opening up a flap. Yep. And we go in and right away I'm face to face with Thorgy, who to me is like a celebrity,
Yeah.
And she goes, oh my God, hi. and I was like, oh my God, hi. And then I was like, do I show my QR code to Thorgy? Does Thorgy scan the ticket? It seems like, she shouldn't have to do that as like the headliner. And she's like, just check in with Sarah. So I checked in with Sarah and we're looking around to find seats. And it was kind of a weird setup where there was nothing else we could do but sit with people we didn't know on these little folding chairs at the end of the picnic table. They were very nice. So if you're listening, thank you for letting us sit next to you and be kind of weird. We really appreciate it.
We gradually took over more and more of their table with our things.
Yes. Yeah. With our little items. Sorry. So then Lindy sits down and I go to the bar to get a little beveragino. And I turn back around and Lindy is talking to not Thorgy, but one of the other queens that was there co-hosting that night. And I was like, God, I can't wait to find out what they're talking about. So I come back like 5 minutes later with my drink. And I was like, what did you guys talk about?
Yeah, I wish I could remember her name. It was like Petra or something. Or I don't know. But I'm sitting there waiting for Meagan. And there are these moments. Maybe this is why I avoid going outside and going to events. Because there are these moments where I'm confronted with the fact that I'm an old dork and I didn't realize, because in my head I'm cool and beautiful.
Yeah. In those moments you see how you see yourself through other people's eyes.
Yes.
And you don't always like what you see.
No,
not always.
I saw myself through the glamorous drag queen's eyes, and what she saw was, oh no, silver alert. So, someone's grandma has wandered in off the street looking for a sheltered place to sit.
Does anyone's informing highway patrol so they can change the signs?
Exactly. She was like, does anyone
old person found in Williamsburg?
does anyone know this woman? So she came up to me and she goes, "Hi, are you here alone?" and I well, at first she was like, "Do you want a raffle ticket?" Because were having a raffle, and then she was like, "Are you here alone?" And I was like, and I said, "No, I have a friend." And she was like, "Oh, okay.
That sounds real. Okay.
Well, you can have 2 tickets
for your friend."
Yeah. So I was giving pathetic old loser, which is fine. It's accurate. I do feel like I learned a lot about myself at the Drag Race watch party, which was like, I actually do think that I am way more awkward and weird than I give myself credit for. And I have a very difficult time connecting with people. And I think because there's like a looseness and an unself-consciousness to even just like watching the show, watching the performers, watching the other people having fun. I was like, oh, I am like a jar of pickled fish just sitting here. I just feel like an old Norwegian jellied eel.
You became that picture of yourself that you use in every Castle Ring. Is that from like 4th grade or whatever, where like the camera didn't pick up your eyebrows at all, and it's just like you in this hat? It's like, oh. And you say in the show, I just watched a clip of it. You say in the show like that thing people say where it's like, when you bully me, you're really bullying her, and it's a picture of you, and you're like, I'd bully her ass.
Yeah,
she's a fucking dork.
It like laid bare this contrast between how I think of myself and how I actually come off. Which but there's a version of me that is like, when people are primed with the information that like I'm of note.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then I can I can be that person. If I'm nobody in a room, I am like, great, I'm nobody. Like I think maybe it's just like I play the role really hard. Yes, whatever people are expecting of me.
I will enter the hedgerows, Homer Simpson style. Nobody here knows who I am, and to you I say goodbye. For what it's worth, after that first moment, you did not give off any of that. You're just giving off.
I don't want to spoil anything, but then later Thorgy came up to us and was showing me her dirty sock. And there was absolutely no way that I, in that state, could banter with her. I just sat there like, yes.
And she said, "Isn't my sock dirty?" And Lindy said, "Yes." You're just like, I will answer the question truthfully. This is a deposition.
I'm sorry, like, am I a professional comedian or what?
It's just so hard. I mean, like, aren't we both? And I just feel like, you get in the same room as people who are like, glamazon comedian professionals, and you're like, I don't know anything. Like, I'm just stunned by your presence,
Also, in our defense, actually, now that I think about it, there's nothing worse than when a comedian tries to do crowd work and the person in the audience thinks that they're a comedian and then they try to be funny. What you want from a crowd work moment is for the person to be a straight man. So
to be don't doing the hee ha ha's. It doesn't work.
Right.
Honestly,
so
I feel
that's what I did, and that's why.
And you nailed it, dude. You don't want the tryhards. I honestly feel that way sometimes when I hang out with comedians that we know in real life. I'm like, I don't feel like I don't want to find myself being like, joke. You know what I mean? It's like, just be normal. It's okay. Even maybe you don't land a joke. Gives a shit.
Yeah.
It's better to just be not funny in that moment than it is to try to be funny and be incredibly embarrassing.
Right?
So something to think about.
I think I would be more successful if I was the kind of person who had the drive and like the instinct to fight for the spotlight and try to like get a joke in edgewise, like win the joke contest. But I'm not that person. And instead I've become an awkward fucking like creepy ghost. So
you for everyone listening, she was not doing that. She was being perfectly normal. I think that Thorgy thought you were a cutie and pretty funny.
Oh.
And then we had a great time watching the show. We got some tacos from the taco truck and had a couple beveraginos. Well, I did. Lindy had a very beautiful, very gay Diet Coke. Ooh, shout out to her. And then it was time to go. So we decided to walk back. And oh boy, did we make a discovery about the icy cold winds of New York. New York is not known for its icy cold winds. There's a different windy city that we talk about when we talk about wind.
Yep.
So we're walking back. Do you want to tell them what happened? Because it was
my
like
pants. My pants.
It was honestly, it's Lindy's diaper. No, it's Chicago, of course.
I know.
Be disgusting.
Sorry.
So we're like, let's walk. Time to go home. Thanks, Thorgy. Have a good one. So we're like, we exited the flap of the bar. We start to walk back to the hotel. How bad could it be? It's so close, but the winds had picked up. And then what happened, Lindy? It was shocking.
So I even went so far as to bring a coat on this trip because I was like, you know what? I want to be responsible. It is winter, even though every time I bring a coat on a trip, I'm annoyed because I never need it.
Never.
I'm never cold enough to wear it. And it's a huge, bulky inconvenience. But on this trip, I was like, okay, I'll bring my coat. And I wore my coat. Thank God, not realizing that the bar was outside. If I hadn't had my coat, I would have had to go home. I would never have even known about the dirty sock. But so we start walking home, and we've said many times on this show, both of us are proud members of the pig DNA community.
Pig DNA?
Do it again.
Pig DNA?
Yeah.
Pig DNA?
Please continue.
I think I said in episode 1 of this show, maybe. Like,
yeah, I think we might have talked about pig DNA in the very first episode. Yeah.
I said, I've never been cold in my life.
Never been cold in my life. I don't know a thing about it.
Nope.
I've never experienced it.
These people who are always shivering, these people who need a blanket, I don't know her
Madness.
At all. So
no, I don't.
I'm proud and scared and confused and excited to announce that Williamsburg, Brooklyn proved me wrong.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Cold as hell on that walk. Something? Yeah.
You know, in cartoons where the person's all teeth chatteringly cold?
Yeah.
My actual teeth in my head skeleton were chattering with from the chill. I was like, what is this? I had like a wool jacket on, but I was like, what on earth? I had it like doubled over. Yeah. In the front, I was like, oh Lord. And the wind was like blowing up the flaps. And I was like, oh my God. And this 5-minute walk was torture. It felt like we were walking through Antarctica.
It was honestly like, it doesn't get that cold here in Seattle. And I looked when we got home and it was something like, it was like 26 feels like 8, which it doesn't become 8 here where I live.
No.
And I was like, oh, this is why you can die in the winter, in the cold.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh my God, it's so scary.
Shocking turn of events for us both because neither of us have ever been cold in our lives.
No.
Ever. And it was crazy.
No, and not one drop of sweat was popping out of my armpit. Not one, no. Usually it's like I can have like bare legs in the winter with a jacket on top. Not today, sister. Not today. Not in Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
Not Williamsburg, Brooklyn in February, I guess. It was wild.
Feels like 8. And I was wearing a big, bulky, puffy coat.
You were. I think you were wearing, and we were both wearing like long pants.
Yeah, I was wearing jeans for once in my life.
Oh, anyway. It was crazy. We got back to the hotel and I was like, literally praise Jesus.
Right.
Like that was so horrible. And then I was like, global warming? I don't think so. Liberals, checkmate. But it was one of those times where like I really considered almost taking a shower because I was so cold. Yeah. And I really don't ever get that cold unless I misjudge the temperature. If you ever buy a Vespa, you really can't scoot under like 40 degrees because it feels like 15.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when I scoot in the cold like that, I get home and I'm like, I can't get warm actually, because I've been like frozen to my actual bone. So I have to take a shower. And I thought about doing it, but I just got in the bed and just like curled up in a little burrito because it was so freezing. It was a shocking turn of events for us.
It was huge news. You know, if there wasn't so much else going on in the world right now, like, and I get it, like would have been front page New York Times.
Oh yeah. The New York Post would have had a really funny pun about it.
Yeah, totally.
They would have been like, polar bear DNA, and all the text me back lights would have been like, oh shit. Anyway, it was crazy. If you've ever been cold, will you give us a call? 703-829-0003. I guess it just felt like, you know what it feels like? Everything is topsy-turvy and insane and bad. And then it was like, what does this mean now that this fundamental fact about me is now also changed? Like, is it apocalypse? Is it, is it over? Is it the Mayan calendar? Is it time? I think it up.
I think it's 2012.
Yeah, I think it's 2012.
Coney 2012.
Yeah, I think it's. Whatever happened to Coney? Is he dead?
Megan,
if you're Coney, will you give us a call?
Anytime you ask my dad a question that he obviously didn't know the answer to, like if I was like, Dad, whatever happened to Coney 2012? He'd say, well, now you're asking whatever happened to Coney 2012.
I loved your dad.
Now you're asking.
Dad. Sorry, this is not to do with being cold at all, but I just remember. So your dad. This is just, I don't know. This is just random. But your dad played the piano at my wedding, which was truly the greatest gift I think I've ever been given. And I asked him to learn how to play More Than a Feeling by Boston for us to walk down the aisle to, like everybody to walk down the aisle to. And he did. He learned it. But I think I really stressed him out, like really bad. And I still feel guilty about it to this day because I remember we met about it and he's like, kid, Boston is one hell of a band. I was like, should we pick something else? And he was like, no, I'll figure it out. And he did. It was amazing.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Anyway.
I always interpreted that to mean, because my dad did not like rock and roll.
No.
He thought it was stupid.
Yes.
So I suspect that he was like, the song is boring and only has two chords. How am I going to play this for 10 minutes straight while everyone walks up the aisle? I don't know.
How am I going to jazz
this up? And also, he's the nicest man. Like, I'm sure it was like, I want to give Megan a compliment about her song choice. I'm just going to say, hell of a band, Boston.
Oh, okay. I actually like that better.
Yeah.
Because I thought I stressed him out and was like making his life worse.
Well, I do remember that you wanted him to play some David Bowie song.
Oh, and that was really horrible.
And he was like, no, that's too hard.
Yeah. And I was like, canceled. It's fine. And by the way, you can cancel on me at any time. It will be fine.
No, he loved it. He loved it. And we have a very, very cute picture of him playing the
Yes, he looked very devilish and handsome and looked like he was having a good time. Anyway, that's the segment we're calling We Got Cold in New York.
I'm walking here.
It's called I'm Walking Here. Up next,
we're calling it
Segment Pubes. Crazy lady living in a bag.
That's right. It's a segment we're calling Segment Pubes, Crazy Lady Living in a Bag. We'll be right back. So stupid. All right, we're back. And we're going to talk about politics. I'm sorry. Everything is so bad and insane. Where you're listening in the future, it has been 1 week-ish plus since Donald Trump gave his very deranged address to Congress. Some Democrats skipped it. Some Democrats showed up with dumb little signs, and I guess that's the resistance now.
Meagan, you're being supportive of people doing dumb little signs.
We're being supportive of people being corny. We are being supportive of people being corny.
Well, this is actually, we're going to get into this in a minute, but that's actually my question. It's like, which corny things do we support and which ones do we critique as not good enough? But
well, I will answer that question. More on that in a moment. So here's the thing. So it's just like, you know, Donald Trump has been president for like 6 weeks now. It's just the pace with which he's dismantling the entire country is really alarming and really scary. And the response from activists, I think, has been really formidable and I think really should be applauded. The response from elected officials has been, I think, leaves a lot to be desired, although some of them are starting to... I wrote about this in Swamp Person. I gave them some credit. I think some Democrats are really stepping up to the plate, and that's good. But I think if we can just engage in horse race politics for a second, it seems like the big loser here is the press. You know, there just seems this desire from the press to just be like, well, you know, this is all basically normal, even though he's a liar. And it's not. So the New York Times posts this thing that basically is an approval matrix of like all of the things that Donald Trump has done over the last month, from like attacking trans people to attacking immigrants to rolling back diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Ukraine, RFK, Gaza, immigration, tariffs, Doge, Eric Adams.
Eric Adams is on there for some reason, which I get it's the New York Times, but if you're going to talk about national political stuff, I don't know why. So, and then they kind of like rank on this matrix what is the worst thing he did and like how consequential it was, from like less consequential to more consequential.
And the positive impact to negative impact.
Yeah. And so... poor trans rights is down at the bottom, but like not consequential. I mean, not negative, you know. And Gaza is in some weird spot on this thing, and they're giving him points for how he handled, you know, DEI, because, you know, a lot of people are suspicious of DEI.
Right, DEI is in the positive impact quadrant,
which is just crazy. It's just crazy. Like, you're a newspaper, man. Why don't you tell people why that's fake? Like, why that's just a fake thing that they made up, you know?
Right.
And the trans thing is really upsetting because it's like the New York Times, almost more than anyone, has been running these horrific anti-trans pieces for years about how the science isn't settled and how, you know, gender affirming care has some big question mark next to it, which just isn't true. And they've been fear mongering about trans people for years. And for them to say like, well, it doesn't really matter. It's like, well, that's really fucking easy for you to say because you did it. Right. Like, you are holding the gun here in a lot of ways, actually. Right. And they're just like not taking credit for it. But the way that
people love to fucking repost first they came for the XYZ.
Yeah.
This is it. This is the moment.
They in fact have come for them.
So what is it that you decide to do? And so you're aware that this is the first step in an onslaught that will eventually devour us all. And yet we're putting it in low consequence, almost positive impact. It's very close to crossing the axis into positive.
Yeah, it's really bad, but also just divvying up politics this way is per se gross and makes no sense. Like, it just isn't. It shouldn't be how we analyze what's going on around us, like whether it helped Trump or hurt Trump. It's like, did it help or hurt people? All of this stuff is hurting people. All of these things he's doing, whether it raises his esteem in the eyes of American voters, is hurting human beings. Like, what are you putting this on a little graphic for? Who the fuck made the graphic? Whatever graphic designer made it, don't you feel kind of bad?
I feel disgusting, even having been drawn into like debating the merit of where a thing should go.
I know.
So I apologize for being so weak, but like, it feels like an old model of journalism, first of all, which is like, okay, we're still playing the game of like, we got to get clicks and shares and we got to make a fun infographic that people can post. What's a fun way to package this when it's like an emergency and your job is to tell people the truth?
I really am sorry if this sounds like dramatics or fear mongering to you all listening, but it's not just, oh, he could pull us into a constitutional crisis. We are in one. We are in a constitutional crisis, and it just feels like the most important newspaper in the country is not leveling with people about that. Like, Donald Trump and Elon Musk are looting the treasury. That's illegal. That is against the law. And it's by definition a constitutional crisis. And they're already intimating that they're going to ignore court rulings that they don't like, and they want to purge the judiciary of judges who are insufficiently loyal to them. That is a constitutional crisis. We are in one. Constitutional crisis is not on the threat matrix, interestingly enough. Even though, to me, that's the most important thing happening in this presidency. It's negative and it's incredibly consequential. So something to think about. But I think this matrix thing got us both thinking about just kind of how to contextualize what's been going on for the last 6 weeks. And we thought maybe we would bring you all on this journey with us. But sorry, in advance, trigger warning, everything's bad. And I think one thing that's kind of emerged from me as like one of the least helpful kind of clapbacks is like, you don't have to be worried about that. Worry about this other thing. What Trump is doing is just a distraction. You should be more mad about this, you know? And like one example is like a couple weeks ago, Trump claimed to have repealed congestion pricing in New York. He did not, by the way, do that, but he took credit for doing it. And then he posted on Truth Social, New York is back. Long live the king. It's actually not good for the president to post that he's a king. That's actually very bad. And one of the really bad things about it is that the Supreme Court last year, in a case called, fittingly, Trump versus the United States, basically said, Trump, you can be a king. You can do whatever you want as long as it's an official act. You are broadly immune from criminal prosecution. You can commit whatever crime you want. If it's an official part of your presidency, that's fine. So the Supreme Court said, you can declare yourself king if you want. And then Trump 1 year later said, okay, I will. Long live the king. That's very, very bad and is further proof of the constitutional crisis that we find ourselves in. Some members of Congress disagree, and I will use their names. His name is Dan Goldman, and he is a representative in New York. And interestingly, he was an impeachment lawyer. He helped impeach Donald Trump the first time when he tried to illegally coerce Ukraine into digging up dirt on Hunter Biden as like a political favor. And in exchange, Trump would give Ukraine money for their war. He would give them humanitarian aid and military aid. And Zelensky was like, no, like what? No. And
I'm busy.
I'm actually busy fighting a war that I didn't start. And so Trump was impeached for that. And Dan Goldman, he was an attorney at the time, but Dan Goldman helped impeach him that time. Fast forward to now, Dan Goldman is now in Congress from the city of New York. And he posts, this is a distraction. Pay no mind to this. Pay attention to the stuff that really matters. And it's like, this does matter. This is bad and this is important. But there's this sort of like smug condescension. And it's not just coming from members of Congress, but maybe even other people in our movement who are like, that's a stupid thing to focus on. You should really focus on this other thing that is like the smart man's focus. Right. That's what you should do instead. That's one of the things we were talking about when you were here visiting is I don't see how it's helpful if you've got a lot of people who are angry about something organically and want to do something about it to sort of pop their balloon and say, doesn't matter. It's not interesting. You know, how does that help?
It's just another way of posturing to make yourself look smarter. Like, it's actually not even about the issues that you're talking about. You want to create a mini hierarchy of political genius within your movement where you're the smartest guy on campus. And it's like, that's also not helpful. I don't know. Like, let people care about the stuff that they care about. I feel like I want to clarify because I think that I said something that maybe could be interpreted like that when we were first processing all this stuff, which was like, but I think that I don't want to speak for you, but I think I meant it in a different way. Not like this stuff's not important. Don't think about it. This stuff is important. And if you're smart, you'll only care about the stuff that is important. I didn't mean it in that way. I meant more like, let's not, first of all, preemptively comply with things that have not been made into real laws. And also, let's not go so far into panic that we discourage people from staying in a hopeful place and going into a place of doom and like immobility. And also, we don't have to solve every single problem at once. We can tackle things one at a time and, pay attention to what they're actually taking action on and what's most urgent. I hope that didn't come across like whatever you care about or whatever you're scared of right now is stupid, because I think it's actually so natural to be frightened right now. And actually, personally, one of the things that's been worrying me about myself is that I feel too calm and I'm like, oh no, what's wrong with me? Am I like completely shut down emotionally? Because it's actually really scary, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that kind of vulnerability, and there's nothing wrong with being scared for all of your neighbors and everyone's future around the world. I mean, like, you get to choose what you want to work on, and there are people who are working on every single one of these problems, and you can decide for yourself what you think is the most dire. But I don't think there's a right answer, and I think that people, especially, look, not to be, maybe this is unfair, but I think that there's a certain type of man on the left who loves to be the king of the brain trust.
Yep.
And I think that that's bad for movement building. And I was mad about it in 2016, and I'm mad about it now.
Yes, I think that's right. I have been guilty of I don't think you need to worry about that, and then being wrong. Right. So I think what we'd like to say is, you're allowed to be mad about whatever you want to be mad about. Everything is really scary. Everything is worthy of your attention. I mean, I get that this is their playbook, right? This is the Trump-Bannon playbook, is to what they call it flooding the zone. They call it shock and awe. They do it on purpose. They really do a lot of really bad things at once, because they know that the press and they know that activists won't be able to track every single thing that they do. Here's how I think it happens. I think that Trump and his cronies of greasy weirdos come up with like a bad thing that they want to do. And they're like, okay, everyone's going to get really mad at us when we do this bad thing. Let's do 10 bad things at once. If the press chases the other 9, then we're good to follow the 1. If the press chases a bad thing we want to do now, we'll just pick the one that they're not focused on. So I just don't think that there's some secret, like, mathematical equation for you to figure out what it is that they're going to focus on so that you feel dumb for not catching it ahead of time, if that makes sense. I'm not sure I'm articulating this right, but basically it's like, if we all focused on X and then they push through Y, you shouldn't feel bad for focusing on X, because if we had all focused on Y, they would have pushed through X. Like, that's kind of how this works. And instead, you should think of it as like, at least we stopped that thing right now. Like, that's a victory that you should appreciate and enjoy, They're going to pivot and adapt to whatever we choose to focose on anyway. So this idea of like kind of being condescending is like, well, that ended up not being a big deal. I hope you feel stupid. It's just like not really helpful, because actually a reframe is they were too scared to push that thing because everyone got mad about it. Like, that was actually a victory. That was an organizing victory, And I don't know, like, to your point, I think that's so true, is this idea of like, who gets to decide what you care about really feels kind of dominated by white male writers and pundits and thinkers who, this is all anecdotal, so take it or leave it if you want, but many of them are now posting like, oh, maybe we should have taken the Women's March more seriously. Maybe those guys had the right idea. And it's like, yeah, jackass. Like, I was out there with our friend Jenny with like a million other people. Many of us were women, many weren't women. And yeah, there was a lot of like 40-something women in hats that they knitted themselves. And if you are like a really cool white guy who lives in New York, you probably thought that was really corny. And now look at where we are. Yeah. For the record, you agree with them, mostly. You agree with 9 times out of 10, you agree with what those pink-hatted ladies had to say. Right. But because you thought they were cheesy, you didn't show up that day. Right. And did that help? I remember at the time, obviously, I understand that this hat is corny. Yeah. And there's a way that people substitute like an easy symbol for more concrete, riskier action. It's easier to repost a meme or go to one march wearing a hat than it is to like put your body, get arrested or whatever. But first of all, that doesn't take away the value of sure, put on a hat and go to one march. That's better than nothing. That's better than going to 0. I didn't personally feel super connected to the like, let's grab them by the pussy and make that our thing. Like, I didn't love that either. I didn't love that. I myself did not wear a hat that day, but But once it was going and like people were mobilized and excited and angry.
who cares? Great. And I remember critiques from like cool leftists explaining why this was actually bad. And I remember at the time not really understanding the logic, being like, it's bad because it's not rigorous enough in its leftist ideology, because they would come up with these sort of ostensibly serious critiques of why
it just never feel like the justifications are actually legit. I'm really sorry, but it just feels like you think something's corny and you have to think of a legitimate reason why you're not participating that isn't just, I think women in their 40s are corny.
Right.
And that's what you came up with. I feel like the same thing happened to you when we've talked about like Milo and some of those journalists who are kind of coming after you. And at the end of the day, it didn't really have anything to do with you or anything. I think some of the leftist writers that were coming after you, they were coming up with these justifications for why you're insufficiently leftist because, you didn't write enough about labor or something. Right. And it's like, that's not what this is about. You just think she's corny and you're just a bully. That's all that this is, you know?
I remember once I wrote, I think it was just a joke. I think I was like, I'm a prison abolitionist, but I would put, this dog in prison for being too cute or whatever. I don't know. And some like leftist troll who had been harassing me or someone on like a, Chapo message board or whatever was like, wow, crazy to see Lindy West identify as a prison abolitionist. And it's like, why? Why is that crazy?
We're the same. Like, we're the same. It's just that like, I'm not inherently embarrassed to like be out in the streets with a sign.
Right.
I'm not embarrassed by that.
And I made a pragmatic decision to support Hillary, which you could have asked me about. You could have like had curiosity about. And you know why? It's because I realized in around August of 2016 that if I didn't use my platform to do everything in my fucking power to get someone other than Donald Trump elected, I would regret it for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It didn't work, but I don't regret it.
But at least we tried. And I feel the same way about Kamala. We tried. Yeah. We did our calls. I gave money. Yep. I did what I could. And it wasn't enough. You know,
I got so much harassment over that Hillary thing, over like writing a column being like, here are some good things about Hillary.
Yeah.
Like I wrote a column that was like, we can't just talk about Trump being bad. Here are some things in Hillary's platform that I agree with or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just was like, hounded about it for the rest of my life, basically.
Yeah.
And then, I just remember feeling like more than anything else, there was just no curiosity about who I actually was and what I actually believed, because I'm just like a fat nerd that nobody wants, like I'm just an easy target.
Loves dragons, you know.
I mean, they didn't even know that, but they could smell it, They were like,
they could get the dragon whiff off you.
They were like, that girl's magic card curious, which I am.
Which I am, by the way.
If you're magic cards and you want to give me a pitch on why I should get started, the email is open.
If you're Wizards of the Coast, give us a call, 703-829-0003. So I don't know that we totally have a point to this segment. I think we just wanted you all to know that, well, one, I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of being a hater because I think people are corny, and I really am working on it because I just feel like part of rebuilding this country involves being in community with people who are annoying. I'm not going to exile people because they're obnoxious. You know what I mean? Like if we agree, put the hat on. I don't care.
There's gonna be an embarrassing guy in the village, and he's gonna come by your house and want to hang out. And
he probably is gonna not totally understand all of the parameters of leftist language or progressive norms, and that's gonna have to be okay with us.
You gotta hang out with the annoying guy in the village if you want things like a communal water supply that we all benefit from, or like protection from bears. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you can go be a hermit and dig your own well and get eaten by a bear. But
I think we might be talking about Animal Crossing now, but I'm not sure.
I'm just trying to make a metaphor about like big tent movement building. It takes a village, and it's like, deal with the annoying guy.
One thing I've been grappling with is something that my old boss, Leah Greenberg, who's one of the co-executive directors of Indivisible, posted, which is, I'm paraphrasing, but she posted, and by the way, it got a pretty hardcore ratio from leftists who thought that it was corny, but she posted, that at some point, all of us are probably going to be faced with someone coming into our movement and saying, I didn't vote for this, and I'm sorry, and I want to help fix it. And we're going to have to say, welcome in, instead of saying, fuck off. And that's such a hard one for me, because on the one hand, I think that's exactly right. And on the other hand, it's going to be really hard to do. And by the way, she's not talking about Republican members of Congress, and she's not talking about hardcore MAGA who don't feel bad. But Donald Trump didn't win just because he turned out every MAGA voter in this country. He won because people trusted him on the economy. That's just true. And so I think those people are gettable. And I think those people can be a part of our movement. But it's going to be like a lot of work on our end to be like, it's okay. Yeah, like, let's do this together. And I kind of am like changing my stance on cookies. You know, that thing that people used to say where it's like, oh, you're finally doing the bare minimum. What do you want? Some cookies? You know, and now I'm kind of like, yeah, let's give them some cookies. I'll take it. You know what I mean? I think my thinking on that has changed pretty significantly in the last 15 years.
As many as you want. So. It's Girl Scout season. How many Thin Mints will it take to get you over
convince
here
you
to hold a sign? I want to say also, because I don't want to be a white lady stealing the work of women of color, there was a great Instagram reel that I shared the other day that said that same thing much more eloquently, which was that, I'll post a link to it in the show notes, but it was something like, being annoyed is the price of community. It's like,
being annoyed is the price of having a functioning country. You know what I mean? Like, that's fine. If I can get my appendix out for free by some guy who's super annoying,
you got to be in proximity with people that you don't like or don't feel, anything in common with. That's just because all of us are different and we all live here and we are social animals.
By the way, I'm annoying. So like, who am I to be like, I don't want to hang out with that person, they're annoying. I'm fucking annoying. That's what they're saying. So listen, we just wanted to do this. I think this was mostly just for us to process how we've been feeling about what's been going on. But could you write in to us and let us know how you're dealing with all this stuff? And like, if you're going to protest, I would love to see pictures. That always makes me so happy. It makes me feel so good to see people out. Wait,
Megan, I have a question for you. So moving forward, because this is a thing I've already struggled with twice this morning. First I saw a thing someone posted in kind of that like leftist snotty way, something about, it was like, Democrats are planning to wear pink for something. Was that to the State of the Union? I don't know. And it was like,
well, it's technically not called the State of the Union.
Whatever it was.
Basically what it is.
And they were like, oh, wow, that'll fix it or whatever. And then the same thing with holding the little signs or like with turning your back and walking out or whatever. How do I decide? I guess it's like, we can hold Democratic lawmakers to a higher standard. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Yeah. That's exactly the answer. The answer is the answer is that we stand anybody who is not an elected official doing whatever they can to make a difference. And if that for you is holding up a little sign, you will never see me talking shit about you or to you. Good for you. Do it. I love it. If you are an elected official and the best you can come up with is a rinky-dink little sign and wearing pink, that's corny, parentheses, derogatory. That's not enough. If you're that pissed, don't go. Don't give it the air of legitimacy by even being present. I get why some Democrats felt they had to be there, but don't go and hold up the fucking little sign. It just makes you look weak and stupid. It does not convey strength. It does not convey that you have some sort of plan to fight back on any of this stuff. It's giving, this was the best we could come up with. And that's a little bit embarrassing if you are an elected official. However, if you are just like a regular person who just wants to find a way to get involved, like I think a really good example is those people in Vermont who sort of lined the streets when JD Vance was on the way to his ski vacation. Look, JD Vance might not be coming to your state for a ski vacation, but there are ways to make an impact in your district or in your state. If you have a friendly Congress member, those calls do make a difference. If you're calling in to say like, look, I get why you went to that address, but that wasn't enough for me. Like next time, don't go if that's how you feel. If you have a Republican member, they're not doing town halls anymore because they got rocked by all of their constituents repeatedly and they all looked fucking dumb. So just start showing up at their office with signs. That's good. That's a good use of signs. That's good sign work. And that's something that we can support. And wear whatever hat you want. I'm not mad about it.
Any hat in the world that you can think of.
I love them all. So write into us and let us know how you're feeling and how you're dealing with this stuff and what you're mad about. I want to know. You know?
Yeah, I want to know too. And I want to see pictures of you at protests. And I'm disturbed, but I'm happy to have all of you.
Yeah.
On the, you know.
We love you guys. If we didn't have the podcast, we would be an empty pistachio shell on the ground. So thank you. It's true. Okay, we'll be right back. Should we play something funny to like make people feel better?
I have something.
What do you got?
Crazy lady living in a bag.
No, wait. How about this?
Constitutional crisis over. We'll be right back. Lindy.
Meagan,
well, I think we solved all of our problems once again.
Yep.
Haven't we?
That's right. I think that's right. But you know what? Actually, Meagan, I do have one more problem.
Yes.
That's been nagging at me.
Go on.
Meagan, I miss the old text me back. I feel like when we started, every episode had an animal fact and a ghost story. And now we go sometimes 6, 7, 8 episodes without a new animal fact or a new ghost story.
We haven't talked about snakes, I don't think, since January of 2024. You know what I mean? But what I am saying is this, like, as far as animals go.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We got to bring back the ghosts at the very least. And I feel like our listeners are spiritually in tune with the underworld.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. Yes.
So you should write in, call in, tell us about the little ghosties in your home or workplace or school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that you're right. I think our listeners are the veil is very thin between our listeners and the spirit realm. Mm-hmm. And I want to hear what's the scuttlebutt? You know? Yeah. What are the ghosties whispering in your ear at night?
Exactly. What are they getting up to? What are they knocking down off of your end table? Yeah. What are they putting in your cereal in the morning? I want to know.
They're knocking upon your chamber door. And what are they wearing?
And what are their little outfits like?
Yeah.
And their hairdos as well. Or do you have any animal ghosts? I'd be very curious to know if you have any animal ghosts.
Yes. God, that's a great question. Why aren't there animal ghosts everywhere? You know, speaking of animal ghosts, I finally fulfilled a dream of mine. I got a game camera set up out in my yard to see if I can capture any animals. And
just posted.
Well, I just went and retrieved it yesterday and I got my first batch. And you know who's out there, Megs?
You and Barry?
Well, yeah, my arm
nice.
Retrieving the camera and setting up the camera. But also deer. Deer.
Cute.
Deer all night long, every night. Deer walking around, munching. There's this one part where the one deer kicks another deer in the head because it gets too close to it, like his fern that he's eating. It's so cute. Anyway.
Should we post that as a Patreon exclusive?
I think so. I think I'm going to I'll post a deer montage as a Patreon exclusive.
You better subscribe to our Patreon.
It's night vision, so they look like ghosts.
Oh, amazing. Haunted. Yeah. I love that. Okay, so let us know about the ghosts.
Please send us your ghost stories. Please.
Subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/textmebackpod. And you know what would be so helpful? Here's the thing. We love you guys so much. A couple months ago, we asked you all to leave our podcast reviews, and you did. We got it was like a desert of accolades for months. And then you guys came out of the woodwork and you gave us water to drink. Yeah. Because we cannot live without our beautiful tasty accolades. And so there's so many. So please keep that up. We really, really appreciate that. But you know what would also be helpful? If you could tell your friends about the show as well.
Yeah.
So more people listen to the show and then we can keep making the show.
Are you an Uber driver? Keep the show on at a ear-splitting volume.
Forget Delilah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Delilah's out.
She's out, baby. It's all about Text Me Back podcast. That's what they're saying. They're saying it's Text Me Back podcast. That's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying.
But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this kind of emotional roller coaster of an episode. I don't think we have anything upcoming to share with you. Just, keep keep enjoying the show. Keep telling us how much you love it, and tell all your friends too.
Yeah, and we can't wait to hear about your spookiest stories. Also, wait, I want to say,
yeah,
I want to hear your ghost stories. If you also have just like a scary thing that happened to you that doesn't involve a ghost, I would love to hear about that as well.
Yeah.
Like when they used to do that Jezebel, I know I've talked about this before. They used to do this Jezebel scary stories thing every year. Maybe they still do it.
Where people
would, and I always loved the ghost stories, but the ones I loved more were like the real life. I mean, sorry, but like borderline true crime where it's like I was walking down a road and then a scary man, like, I don't know, drove next to me in his car and then I had to like hide in a bush. I mean, I found
out later that man was Richard Ramirez.
Exactly. I'm not saying I want that to have happened to you.
No, but if it did.
If you have had an encounter with the killer, I'm just saying you can throw that in with the ghost stories.
That counts. That counts as a ghost story. Yeah, absolutely.
That counts.
So
we're movement building here, Megan. We're creating a big tent.
A big tent of ghosts and ghoulies and killers. Yep. You know what would be cool is if you sent it as a voicemail. Then we can play your voicemail. 703-829-0003 and we'll play your little voicemail.
Yeah.
And then Lindy and I can go on vocal rest. Just kidding. But thank you all very much. Hang in there, please.
Yes,
and
please.
We'll see you next week.
We love you. We love you so much. We love you so much.
Mwah. We want to subscribe to your Patreon. TextMeBack.com/listeners. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Text Me Back. If you like the show, please tell your best friend about us. Be sure to rate and review us. It helps people find the show. And most importantly, please support our Patreon so we can keep making this. It's patreon.com/TextMeBackPod. Text Me Back is a production of Megan and Lindy, proud members of the BFF Network. Our senior producer is Megan Hatcher-Mays. Our other senior producer is me. Our show is supported by Co-Pilot Collective and produced by Allie Slice. Our digital strategist is Chance Nichols.
Diana Bowen is our video and creative wizard. Our production team includes Lindy West, Megan Hatcher-Mays, our loves, our anxieties, and our fears.
Our music is by Chief Ahamefule J. Oluo.
Special thanks to our perfect angels, Jeannie Yandel, Brandy Fullwood, and Isolde Raftery.
I'm Lindy West.
And I'm Megan Hatcher-Mays. See you next week. Mwah!